whispers on the high plains. The sun hung low on the horizon, a giant molten orb melting behind the jagged silhouettes of the Dustwood hills. Its last amber rays spilled over the endless golden plains, casting long, lazy shadows across the cracked earth. The prairie wind stirred the tall grasses, sending waves rippling like the surface of a vast golden ocean. Dustwood, a sleepy frontier town clinging to life against the relentless push of time and wilderness, lay nestled in a shallow valley, its wooden buildings weathered and sun-bleached. Harper Lane's horse kicked up a thin cloud of dust as it trotted slowly along the main dirt street. The rhythmic creak of leather and the soft clatter of hooves on the uneven ground seemed loud in the stillness of late afternoon. The few townsfolk scattered about paused to glance up, curious about the stranger who had just arrived. Dustwood was not a place visited by many outsiders these days, especially not by a woman alone. Harper's sharp eyes swept over the town as she dismounted, steady and composed, despite the storm of nerves swirling inside her. Her boots hit the dry earth with quiet confidence as she adjusted the worn leather satchel slung over her shoulder. The satchel held her few possessions: textbooks, a journal filled with lessons and dreams, and a letter of recommendation from a distant school district willing to take a chance on a determined teacher. But more than anything, it carried the weight of her hopes, to bring knowledge, to inspire, and to find a new beginning. Dustwood's boardwalks creaked underfoot as Harper made her way toward the modest schoolhouse at the far end of the street. The building was a single-room structure with faded blue paint peeling from the clapboards. The windows were dusty, the door hanging slightly ajar. Yet within those four walls lay the promise of change, the fragile hope that even the forgotten corners of the West could be illuminated by education. Harper took a deep breath, savouring the dry, sun-baked air tinged faintly with sagebrush and wood smoke. She was far from the bustling cities she'd once known, far from the well-manicured halls of the East, where society whispered of proper behaviour and stifling expectations. Here, the wildness of the land matched the wildness she felt inside, an unyielding desire to carve her own path. Yet beneath her composed exterior lay a past veiled in shadows. Harper's story was whispered in the towns she'd passed through, carried on the wind like secrets not quite spoken aloud. Rumours said she'd fled a broken engagement in the East, a promise shattered by betrayal, a love turned cold. Others whispered she'd run from scandal or heartbreak, seeking refuge in the vast openness of the frontier where no one knew her name. The truth, she thought, was more complicated. Harper had indeed left behind a life once filled with promise, a future planned out by others. But that future had crumbled beneath her feet, leaving her adrift, searching for a place where she could be more than the sum of other people's expectations. Dustwood was her chance, imperfect, rugged, and uncertain, but hers to claim. Her first night in town was quiet, the stars wheeling slowly overhead in a sky so clear it seemed to stretch into forever. The wind whispered through the cottonwoods lining the creek, a lullaby for the lonely and the hopeful alike. Harper sat outside the schoolhouse, candlelight flickering through the window, and wrote in her journal. Her pen moved steadily across the paper, words flowing like a river releasing years of silence. She wrote of dreams for the children she had yet to meet, of lessons that went beyond reading and arithmetic, lessons of courage, kindness, and resilience. She wrote of a hope that one day Dustwood might grow from a forgotten town into a home, but as the moon climbed higher, an uneasy feeling settled in her chest. The peace of the evening was fragile, like the brittle pages of an old book. Somewhere beyond the hills, the sound of a horse's hoofbeat stirred the shadows. The next morning dawned with a pale pink sky. Harper awoke to the bustle of a town slowly coming to life. Merchants opened their shops, cowboys rode past with dusty hats pulled low, and children darted through alleys with laughter that seemed almost foreign in this quiet place. Word travelled fast in Dustwood. The stranger with the keen eyes and steady step was already the subject of hushed conversations. Some saw her as a welcome change, a beacon of hope. Others regarded her with suspicion, as they did all outsiders who came seeking to tame the wild. It was on the third day that the town's uneasy balance was broken. A rider appeared over the ridge, silhouetted against the burning sun, tall, broad-shouldered, with a coat dusted white from the trail. The man moved with purpose, the weight of his presence settling like a dark cloud over the dusty street. His name was Cole Maddox. The name was enough to still the murmurs in the crowd. Cole Maddox was the outlaw whose reputation had spread like wildfire through the territories, a man rumoured to be as quick with his gun as he was haunted by a past stained with loss. Some said he was a killer, others a man driven by a desperate quest for redemption. Dustwood had not seen a figure like him in years, and the townsfolk watched with wary eyes as he rode slowly through the centre of town. Harper felt the air shift the moment their paths crossed. His stormy eyes met hers for a fleeting second, a silent exchange that spoke of secrets buried deep and battles yet to come. For the first time since her arrival, Harper sensed the true weight of the frontier, a land where hope and danger rode side by side, where every day was a test of will and every stranger could be a friend or a foe. And so began the story of Harper Lane in Dustwood, a story of courage, mystery, and the unexpected collision of two souls seeking redemption on the wild, unforgiving high plains. Dustwood was a town tempered by dust and grit, where every soul bore a story of hardship, survival, and resilience. The arrival of Cole Maddox unsettled its fragile calm like a sudden storm breaking a long drought. His presence was a silent challenge, whispered in the wary glances of the townsfolk and the cautious tightening of hands near holstered revolvers. Cole was a man carved from the harsh land itself, tall and broad-shouldered, with a rugged jawline dusted in stubble, and eyes the colour of dark storm clouds ready to burst. Every step he took carried the weight of a violent past, a history written in blood and shadow. His reputation preceded him, tales of swift justice and merciless retribution trailing in his wake. Yet beneath that hardened exterior, there lingered a haunted look, as if the ghosts of a life stolen still clung to him. For Harper Lane, the arrival of Cole was the unexpected crack in her carefully guarded resolve. She was a woman driven by purpose, to teach, to build, to heal. Yet something about Cole unsettled her, a fierce magnetism that stirred deep currents of fear and longing alike. When their paths crossed for the first time, it was in the flickering light of the town's saloon, a place thick with smoke and whispered secrets. Cole's entrance silenced the room, eyes turning to measure the stranger. Harper stood near the bar, the quiet strength in her stance contrasting with the fragile hopes she carried. Their gazes locked for a moment, a spark igniting in the shadows between them. He approached, his voice low and rough. "You're the schoolteacher, aren't you?" "Harper Lane?" She nodded, refusing to be intimidated by the outlaw's presence. "And you're the man they call Maddox?" He smirked, but there was no humour in it. "That's me." They spoke cautiously, words wrapped in layers of meaning. Harper sensed the storm beneath his calm, the secrets he guarded like a loaded gun. Cole saw in her eyes the fierce determination to survive, a reflection of the same restless spirit that had driven him across unforgiving miles. As days passed, Harper and Cole's worlds collided more often. He shadowed the edges of town, always watching, always waiting. She saw him in the schoolyard, quietly protecting the children from unruly boys and hidden dangers. There was an unspoken understanding growing between them, a fragile truce born of necessity and something far deeper. But Dustwood's uneasy peace was not built to last. Whispers swirled through the wind like dust devils. Some townsfolk whispered of Cole's outlaw past with fear, others with grudging respect. But there were darker whispers, talk of men on horseback moving through the night, mercenaries with cold eyes and colder hearts, hunting Cole like a wolf pursues a wounded deer. One evening, under the cloak of twilight, Harper stumbled upon the truth. She had been trailing a thread of rumours to an abandoned homestead on the outskirts of town, a place where secrets lingered like dust in the beams of the sinking sun. Hidden behind a crumbling wall, she overheard voices, low, urgent, and full of menace. The Maddox boy can't stay hidden forever. They say he's the rightful heir to the Callahan estate, stolen as a child by those who wanted the land. A fortune worth killing for. Harper's heart pounded as the pieces fell into place. Cole Maddox was no ordinary outlaw. He was the missing heir to a wealthy ranching empire, torn from his family by ruthless enemies hungry for power. His outlaw persona was a shield, a guise worn to protect himself and those he cared for. But the true threat was not the law. It was the mercenaries closing in, ready to silence him permanently and seize the vast riches tied to the Callahan name. Determined to protect the man she had come to trust, Harper returned to Dustwood, her mind racing with plans and fears. When she found Cole, he was sitting alone by the fire outside the saloon, the flickering flames casting long shadows on his face. She sat beside him, voice steady but urgent. "They're coming for you. The men you've been running from, they want everything." Cole's eyes darkened with resolve. "I knew they wouldn't give up. My family's legacy is blood-stained, and I'm the last piece they want to erase." Together, they forged a fragile alliance. Harper's courage and sharp mind complementing Cole's grit and gunmanship. They prepared Dustwood for the storm that was to come, rallying the townsfolk, setting traps and sharing whispered plans beneath star-strewn skies. In the days that followed, Harper taught the settlers to defend their homes, turning school lessons into survival drills. Cole trained the able-bodied men and women to wield their rifles with deadly precision. Their partnership became the heartbeat of Dustwood, a symbol of hope rising from the dust. The night the mercenaries came, the town held its breath. Horses thundered through the streets, their hooves pounding like war drums. Shadows flickered in the lantern light, guns gleamed with cold intent. The mercenaries were ruthless, their faces hardened by greed and cruelty. But Dustwood was ready. Harper stood shoulder to shoulder with Cole, her rifle steady, her eyes fierce. The battle erupted in a blaze of gunfire and dust, echoes rolling across the plains like thunder. Cole moved like a shadow, precise and unyielding, while Harper's heart pounded with a mix of fear and fierce determination. Amidst the chaos, their bond deepened, a silent promise forged in fire and blood. When the dust finally settled, the mercenaries lay defeated, their ambitions shattered beneath the resolve of a town united. Dustwood breathed a fragile new life, its people standing taller, hearts braver. In the aftermath, Harper looked to Cole, no longer the haunted outlaw, but a man reborn, standing strong beside her. Together, they had faced the darkness and emerged into the dawn. Their story was far from over. The road ahead was uncertain, filled with challenges yet to come. But for the first time, Harper Lane felt the stirrings of hope, the promise of love, and the strength found in standing together against the wild, unforgiving frontier. The dawn broke over Dustwood with a gentle light that felt almost like a promise. The air was crisp, washed clean by the night's rain, and the golden plains stretched endlessly, whispering stories of survival and rebirth. Harper stood at the edge of town, gazing out across the horizon. The battle had changed everything. Dustwood was no longer just a forgotten outpost. It was a home forged in courage and sacrifice. The townsfolk were beginning to rebuild, their eyes brighter, their steps surer. Cole approached quietly, his boots soft on the dew-kissed earth. The hardened outlaw had been tempered by fire and the fierce loyalty of a woman who refused to turn away. His stormy eyes met hers with a warmth that had once seemed impossible. "We did it," Harper said softly. "Dustwood survived." Cole nodded, a rare smile breaking through the shadows that had long clouded his face. "And so did we." But there was still a shadow hanging over them, the mystery of Cole's lost family and the fate of the Callahan estate. Their victory was only the beginning of a longer journey, one they would face together. Days later, a weary rider appeared on the horizon, dust swirling around him like a cloak. As he drew nearer, Harper's heart clenched. It was Cole's estranged uncle, the last living Callahan, carrying news long awaited and feared. "You're not alone anymore," he said, dismounting with a gravity that filled the quiet morning. "Your family survived. The boy they took, your cousin, has been found." Cole's eyes widened, a mix of hope and disbelief washing over his face. The missing heir was alive, but the reunion was bittersweet. The young cousin, scarred by years in exile, bore the weight of grief and betrayal. Yet, in his eyes, Harper and Cole saw a reflection of their own struggles, a fight for identity, belonging, and justice. Together, they vowed to restore the Callahan legacy, not through bloodlines alone, but through the bonds forged in hardship and love. As the sun climbed higher, Harper and Cole stood side by side, hands intertwined, ready to face the future. The wild frontier had tested them, tried to break them, but it had also given them something precious, a chance at redemption, and a love that could weather any storm. In Dustwood, beneath the vast, endless sky, two souls had found their home. And their story, of courage, secrets, and second chances, was only just beginning.